Alright, so for the main course, how's it going with fourth grade writing group? What are my struggles and what are my triumphs? So, it's going okay with my fourth grade writing. I'm struggling with getting my student to dig deeper into his story to, get the meaning or his, I believe statement within his story. He has a really good, I believe, statement. He believes that love is the most important thing, and I think that would be a triumph that we accomplished, was that he did figure out what this I believe statement was, and it was a workable one. But I'm still struggling with getting him to dig deeper to find the meaning that's within his story. And so I kind of just had him write down some details within his story and kind of had him relate those to his this I believe statement. And it's kind of working, but it's kind of not. And his this I believe statement is changing a little bit based on his story. And I told him that that was fine, that we could change his this I believe statement, or he could change his story to fit his this I believe statement, whichever one he wanted to do. And he said he wanted to keep both of them the same. So I was kind of trying last Thursday to get him to relate his this I believe statement to his story, which kind of was working. We were making progress towards the end of the class, but then again, we had this long break, so I don't know if he's been thinking about it at all or what's been going on. But so how does this help me think about writing instruction in the future? It's gonna be hard. That's what I'm thinking right now for my future classroom. If it's I don't know, I'm kind of if this is what it's like with one student, how is it going to be like with 25 students? Because essentially I'm not going to have 20 U of L students in my classroom to help me write papers with my students. So I'm just trying to find out or figure out in my brain how I can make that work in my classroom, where I do individual conferences or something with the kids and try to get them to add details and develop more thought in their writing. But that would be the only thing that I'm thinking about right now for my future classroom. How I'm going to be able to implement writing instruction with so many students with diverse levels, and be able to have everyone meet, eventually meet the standard or develop a good writing piece. I mean, in the Fletcher text, it's finding my students' voice. I've kind of been doing that. Last week I kind of was trying to do that with my student, have them well, where were you at? I was asking them questions where were you at when this happened? What were you wearing? How did you feel? Things like that to get him to develop his voice in his writing. We didn't get very far, but that's what I had been working on, and that has helped, develop his writing so far right now. So my vegetable that I picked was, if you have taught a formal lesson plan or done any reading or writing instruction in your field placement, how did that go, and what did you learn? I taught my writing lesson on Monday to second graders. And what we did is, because they're just starting to develop their writing skills and stuff like that. They're still pretty young. Um, we reviewed nouns and verbs. They haven't learned or talked about that this year. And so that's one thing that, they need to be able to implement in their writing, is the use of nouns and verbs and how, and using those correctly in their sentences. So I worked on that and then had them practice writing using nouns and verbs and identifying to make sure that they had a noun and verb in each sentence and that it made sense. And it went pretty well. My teacher said that I did pretty good. I asked her if there was any suggestions for improvement. She said that the only suggestion that she had was that to bring the students to the carpet when I did the story, because I read the story on the smartboard, so it was projected on the smartboard, so it was like a huge display of it. I didn't have a book in my hand, so they could see it very well from their seat, but as far as instructional wise, she said that I did good. My partner, Carly, she said that I did good too. Her only suggestion was that I use the term noun and verb more than a person, place, or thing, or an action. Because I said, okay, I would ask them, okay, can you identify a person, place, or thing on this page, or can you identify an action? But I often did make the connection between a verb. Like I would say, can anybody find a verb or an action? I would say the definition, so that they made that connection. But she suggested that I use it more often than I did. But she said that it went pretty well, and I thought it did. And as I was reading Catching Readers, Chapter 10, it was talking about informal assessment when you're reading to students and asking them questions and stuff like that. And I kind of did that without really thinking that I was doing it. I didn't make any notes or anything like that, but after I taught my lesson, me and Carly, we got together and divided up the papers that the students, who was on target, who was below target, and who was struggling to meet the target. And as I was reading, I noticed, and she noticed too, we were talking about this after, was that a lot of students struggled with identifying the verbs in the sentence, and they did really well with identifying nouns. And in their writing, they did well with identifying nouns, but not so much with the verbs. They were struggling with that. So she is going to adjust her lesson to meet that and focus more on verbs instead of nouns, and we kind of worked that out together. But that's kind of how, in the book it was talking about, if there was, during a shared or interactive read aloud where there was multiple students who were struggling to meet a target skill, that you do that in your next lesson. You accommodate that. And so that's kind of what we did without even having read the chapter. But so I kind of made that connection between the book and Catching Readers Chapter 10 and my lesson. And then for dessert, I am confident with getting students to add details and thoughts and making connections in their writing. I think I'm pretty good at doing that in my own writing. The only thing that I have doubts about or worries is parts of speech, and making sure that in their writing they're using the correct parts of speech and correct punctuation and stuff like that. I'm not really good at I don't feel that I am that well prepared to teach those kinds of things, like you know, where do semicolons go and where do colons go in a sentence, and then like when I was teaching this lesson, I had to learn what the different types of verbs were. Like, it had been so long since I had done that, and I did not know that a noun could also be an idea, and we didn't go over that in my lesson, but that was one of the things that I didn't know. I told my students that there are some nouns that are person, places, or things, and that's what we're going to discuss today. And I told them that some verbs were actions, and those were the kinds that we were going to discuss today. But I didn't go into depth the other types, just because if it was really that confusing to me, I don't feel like my students would understand it very well. Like, I didn't know that was and be were verbs, and at least I hope they are. But, you know, like, and then, like, when I was studying over the summer for the reading section of the Praxis, like, I was watching brain pop videos, so that kind of helped me. But, like, dependent and independent clauses, like, I didn't even know those existed. And then, like, I don't know, a ton of other stuff. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but just that kind of stuff I don't feel prepared to teach, or, you know, very good at teaching. Like, I have to teach myself before I teach it, which, I mean, I guess you learn from teaching multiple times the same thing multiple times, so, I mean, eventually we'll get better at it, but, I mean, that's the only doubt that I have about teaching reading and writing. And then, but yeah, I'm pretty confident about having students add detail and thoughts and make connections and stuff in their writing, and be creative with their writing. So that's it. Thanks.